There was a time when the fight world whispered his name with fear. Alistair Overeem wasn't just a heavyweight. He was a monster. Towering, muscular, and devastating, with knees that shattered ribs and punches that folded men like paper. He conquered kickboxing. He crushed men in MMA rings from Japan to the United States. K1 Grand Prix champion, Strikeforce champion, Dream Heavyweight champion. The Reem was more than a fighter. He was evolution itself. But glory doesn't last forever. And behind the shredded physique and thunderous knockouts were suspensions, humiliations, and losses that turned a feared giant into a tragic figure. Today, at 45 years old, Alistair Overeem lives far from the spotlight. His fighting career ended quietly. His once superhuman body is gone. His story is no longer about dominance. It's about silence. In the early 2000s, Overeem was just another European fighter trying to break into elite combat sports. Tall, rangy, and explosive, he began his career as a light heavyweight in Pride FC. He had dangerous knees, sharp submissions, and natural athleticism, but he wasn't yet the monster. That transformation came later. Around 2007, fans began noticing a shocking physical transformation. Overeem didn't just put on size, he seemed to double in muscle. His traps ballooned, his arms thickened, his frame became something out of a comic book. The internet gave him a new nickname, Overeem, and the new version of Alistair wasn't just big. He was terrifying. In 2010, he shocked the world by winning the K1 World Grand Prix title, defeating legends like Tyrone Spong, Gokhan Saki, and Peter Aerts, all in a single night. At the same time, he dominated Strikeforce, crushing Brett Rogers and defeating Fabricio Werdum. He even picked up titles in Japan's Dream promotion. It was unheard of, an athlete simultaneously holding major championships in kickboxing and MMA. By 2011, when he signed with the UFC, the hype was deafening. Overeem's UFC debut was a spectacle. He was matched against Brock Lesnar, another mountain of a man, in what felt like a monster movie come to life. Fans expected chaos, and Overeem delivered. A vicious liver kick crumpled Lesnar to the ground in agony. The fight was over in minutes. Overeem stood tall, a god among heavyweights, and asked, "Who's next?" But at the very height of his rise, whispers began to swirl. Could any man's body really be this big, this powerful, this dominant, without help? In 2012, just before his scheduled UFC title fight against Junior Dos Santos, the truth came crashing down. Overeem failed a random drug test. His testosterone to epitestosterone ratio came back at a staggering 14:1, more than 14 times the natural limit. The fight was scrapped. Overeem was suspended. The monster who had demolished Brock Lesnar and dominated K1 was suddenly branded a fraud. His excuses, that it was the result of an anti-inflammatory injection, were widely dismissed. Dana White was furious. Fighters mocked him. Fans who once feared him now laughed at him. And when he returned, everything was different. Without the inflated physique, Overeem's body looked deflated. The once terrifying figure seemed smaller, less intimidating. Fans noticed. Opponents noticed. And worse, so did his chin. In 2013, he fought Antonio Bigfoot Silva. After dominating early, he was caught with a brutal barrage that left him unconscious against the cage. A few months later, Travis Brown landed a front kick to his face, followed by hammer fists, sending Overeem crashing down again. But the worst was yet to come. By 2017, Overeem had clawed his way back into title contention. Ranked highly, he believed one more win would secure him a shot at UFC gold. His opponent, Francis Ngannou. What happened next is remembered as one of the most brutal knockouts in UFC history. Ngannou landed an uppercut so violent that Overeem's body stiffened mid-air before crashing lifelessly to the canvas. The highlight went viral. Fans were horrified. Commentators were speechless. Overeem had gone from feared giant to highlight reel victim. If there was ever a chance for Alistair Overeem to rewrite his story, it came in September 2016 at UFC 203. He was finally fighting for the UFC Heavyweight Championship against Stipe Miocic. For a brief moment, it looked like destiny. Overeem dropped Stipe early and nearly locked in a guillotine choke. But Miocic escaped, rallied, and knocked Overeem out cold. Then came the moment that sealed the night in infamy. In his post-fight interview with Joe Rogan, Overeem claimed Stipe had tapped. Rogan called for the replay live on screen. The crowd watched. There was no tap. The audience booed. Dana White later called it one of the most embarrassing moments in UFC history. Instead of sympathy for a brutal defeat, Overeem became a punchline. And that was his last chance at UFC gold. Overeem continued to fight, but the pattern was undeniable. His body had changed. His style had shifted from aggressive predator to cautious survivor. He picked shots, circled, and tried to outlast opponents rather than overwhelm them. He won some fights, but the knockout losses kept piling up. By 2021, he faced Alexander Volkov in what turned out to be his final UFC fight. Overeem looked slow, hesitant, and overwhelmed. Volkov dismantled him with ease, finishing him by TKO. And just like that, Overeem's UFC career ended. No retirement ceremony, no tribute video, no mention from Dana White. He was simply removed from the rankings and released from his contract. For a man who had fought legends across continents, his exit was silent, almost cruel. Not ready to walk away, Overeem signed with Glory Kickboxing in 2021, returning to his roots. His fight with Badr Hari in 2022 was billed as a clash of aging legends. In a dramatic performance, Overeem dropped Hari twice in the final round and won by decision. He collapsed in tears. It felt like redemption, one final moment of triumph. But within weeks, the fairy tale ended. Overeem failed a drug test. The win was overturned. Glory quietly released him. That night, which could have been his closure, was erased. Since then, Overeem has faded into near silence. He has turned down commentary offers, declined coaching roles, and stepped away from the spotlight. Instead, he speaks occasionally in small podcasts and Christian radio programs about his newfound faith. He admits he chased the wrong things: fame, power, money, and that none of it gave him peace. He talks about depression and anxiety after leaving the UFC. Without fighting, he says, he didn't know who he was anymore. Today, he lives quietly in the Netherlands. No more gruel in training camps, no more bright lights, just a modest home, his children, and a life far removed from the roar of the crowd. Physically, the damage is clear. His face is weathered. His speech was slower. His body, once a sculpted masterpiece, now resembles that of a retired laborer. Dozens of knockouts and years of punishment have left their mark. Financially, he is stable, but not extravagant. He once earned millions, but there are no fleets of supercars or luxury jets. Divorced, and with fewer public appearances than ever, his life now is solitary. For a man who fought 67 times across MMA and kickboxing, who held titles in multiple organizations, and who defeated legends in 2 combat sports, his ending feels incomplete. There's no Hall of Fame induction, no farewell fight, no closure, just silence. Alistair Overeem was once the most feared heavyweight on earth. Now, at 45 years old, he is a man without a crown, a warrior without a war. And perhaps that silence is the most tragic ending of all. Alistair Overeem's story is both inspiring and heartbreaking. He climbed to the highest peaks of combat sports, tasted glory, and lived as a giant among men. But he also fell hard. Scandals, knockouts, and a quiet fade into obscurity replaced what could have been a legacy of greatness. What do you think defines Overeem's career more? The titles he won or the brutal losses that marked his decline? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story powerful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon for more deep dives into the untold stories of combat sports legends.